You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Barbell Logic podcasts. To the Barbell Logic podcast.
We've done a lot.
Maybe you're binging. I'm Nikki Sims, joined with the ever wonderful Matt Reynolds. Excited to talk to you all again. Matt, what's going on? What are we talking about today?
So we were tossing around ideas a couple weeks ago as we're laying this thing out, and we're really going to talk about like the once and potentially forever future novice, people who are sort of novices all the time, or when you have to go back to being a novice, or what that looks like. You know, like maybe you've come out of novice programming and you've been an intermediate or advanced and something's happened and you feel like you're kind of getting thrown back into novice programming. And I was thinking about my grandpa taught me how to play cards when I was a little kid. We wouldn't gamble, we'd gamble with like fake chips or whatever. And a little kid, but he just taught me like the rules of all the different poker games. And for people that have played poker in the past, or have a group of people that play poker with, a lot of times you'll do like dealer's choice. So the dealer gets to choose, what game are we playing, right? Are we playing like Texas Hold'em, or playing 5-card stud or whatever? And so my grandpa would say, I'd be like 5-card stud, and he'd say, everything's wild but the queens, and they're wild too. And then it was him just kind of making a joke, like everything's wild, basically, right? And it reminded me of, in programming, it's like everybody's a novice except for the advanced lifters, and they're novices too. And what I mean by that is, obviously we can get, there are times when I can paint with a very wide swath. And there are certainly times when you're not going to do novice or a linear progression type programming. But I have found that in my training and the training of most of my clients, even the ones that are very, very, very consistent, the vast majority of them from week to week, from workout to workout, or if you compare their, like if their Monday workout to the previous Monday workout, is really still some version of like a linear progression. They're just adding a little bit of weight each week, or they're adding a little bit of volume each week, or they're adding a little bit of tonnage, some combination of the two. And that's really what they're doing. And so it's like playing cards, like everything's wild but the queens, and they're wild too. It's kind of like, everybody's a novice except for advanced lifters, and they're also kind of novice most of the time as well.
So is the novice qualification, is that the time domain that it takes them to move up in whatever variable you're manipulating?
I think that's a great question, right? So, and this has been discussed a lot about, is it how long have you trained? Do you have a year, are people who have trained for a year, they've had a year of serious training under their belt, no longer novices, or some sort of time domain there? Is it how fast can I put weight on the bar? If I can put weight on the bar every session, every 24 hours to 48 hours, I'm a novice. If it takes me like once a week, I'm intermediate, whatever. There's not a consensus in the strength community. What I know is this, is that if the only variable if you're only changing one variable each time you do a workout, and that variable is a little more weight or a little more volume, then that's pretty linear. And if you're doing linear, then to me, that's basically novice programming. Now, again, we can get pedantic and we can be like, if you look at block programming and kind of what happens, there's an inverse relationship with block programming, that as intensity starts low and volume starts high, and as time goes on, you get closer and closer to your PRs, the volume gets lower and the intensity gets higher. So that, by its very nature, is not linear, because you're having an inverse relationship of those two things. But if what you're really doing is, let's say you're on a 4-day split. A lot of our listeners are on a 4-day split. I like a 4-day split. I like 2 upper days and 2 lower days. I like to program that way. I like to train that way. And a lot of, most of my clients train that way at some point, especially as soon as I can get them there, we typically go there. So let's say their Monday workout is an upper body workout, Tuesday's a lower body, Thursday's upper body. Their Monday workout, I can just compare their Monday workout from last week to their Monday workout to this week to their Monday workout of next week.
Yep. And
the only thing that's really changing from Monday to Monday to Monday to Monday is the weight gets a little heavier on the same lifts each week, or the volume gets a little more each week, or the tonnage goes up a little bit each week.
There's something that is going up.
There's only one thing that's going up. So you're right.
And that's important. Like, that's one thing that, like, you can copy and paste and adjust things, but something needs to be increasing. And usually when you increase something past a novice, something else has to decrease.
That's exactly right. But so here's what's crazy. And I think really this is the crux of the argument today that we should talk through. And I think we can use personal experience both as coaches and longtime lifters ourselves. I know I speak for you as well. I have definitely had times in my life when I could no longer increase everything. I could no longer like just make the weight on the bar go up, or I could no longer just make the volume go up, or I could no longer just make the tonnage go up. And therefore, I had to give up something else. If the weight went up, the volume had to come down. If the volume went up, the weight had to come down. There was some sort of inverse relationship there. Or I had to waive my stress. I would have a medium stress week where, you take the combination of sort of intensity and volume. Let's say tonnage is the best, maybe the best measure of overall stress. So let's say our tonnage is sort of moderate week 1, very heavy week 2, like high tonnage week 2. Week 3 becomes a deload and it becomes way less. And so you have to waive the stress. Anytime there's a wave or that there's not a linear progression of a thing, then you're not novice. You're not doing novice training by its very definition. Actually, I hadn't thought about trying to come up with an exact definition of this for this podcast, but I think it makes sense that if you can just add a little bit of work each time to the workout, then that's pretty much novice training. That may be kind of at the end of novice training. So it might literally be as simple as the standard sort of linear progression, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, add 5 pounds to the squat every single time. But it also might be you went up 5 pounds from Monday to Monday, or you went up 1 rep or 2 reps in volume from Monday to Monday. And so if you think about your history of your training or the training of your clients, what percentage of the time of all the clients you have, knowing that you coach novices and intermediate and advanced, or people at least from a time under their belt, have trained from 1 to 2 months to 10 to 20 to 30 years, what percentage of those people are still pretty much, if you compare their Monday workout to Monday workout or the same workout to same workout, they're just doing a little more work each time. And for me, I would say 90% of my people are doing that consistently. And then about 10% of the time or 15%, and maybe if you really got in and you really dug in, maybe it's 20 or 25% of the time, my clients are at the point where we have to waive those things. We have to get more complicated. What about you?
I have a lot of clients now who are actually more complicated. So like we cycle. I have a lot of clients who are cycling.
Yep.
It's usually a 4-day split, but we have like a week of going for 5 RMs, a week of going for 3 RMs, a week of getting ready for singles, a week of going for single RMs, and then depending on the lifter, a deload week. And then it's like, not giving away any secrets here, I kind of copy and paste it, and I make everything go up just a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
But there's still a wave. So if that with exactly the way you've explained,
I think that's a wave. Yeah. Like things are going up, coming down, coming back up.
That's definitely a wave. And I would definitely say that's definitely not novice programming. I would say it is still minimum effective dose. It's kind of one step beyond.
Yeah. But I will say when I introduce a new variation, that is pretty novice. And so when I introduce like a safety bar squat or a deficit deadlift, after a certain point, I will start to waive that kind of supplemental volume work. But when I first introduce it, it keeps going up.
Yep.
Even as the cycle waves, the supplemental is actually remaining pretty linear, and you could call it novice because that's just like adding 2.5 pounds. Eventually, that lift gets to the point where I also start waiving it relative to the intensity.
Yep.
But that would be a novice kind of qualification.
No, that's a great point. And it's a point I think that people forget about a lot of times. I forget about it a lot of times to at least communicate it this well, is that people aren't at the same place in all of the lifts at the same time.
Yeah.
So they might be at a point where they have to waive their bench press because they've bench pressed for 20 years, but they've only been squatting for a year or 6 months. And so they're still very much a novice on the squat. And so that's another reason that it gets a little more complicated. You start to try to define a person as a whole organism, human, as novice or intermediate advanced, like,
like you have to really kind of make sure you're aware of there being a novice lifter who is, like you said, full body novice. This whole person is not as strong as they could be.
Right.
Potentially should be.
They can make
and
progress
that's their whole
every
body.
single workout, basically.
Yeah. And then we'll have some people come in, and oftentimes it's a dude who bench presses, because that's what a lot of dudes do at the gym. They're comfortable bench pressing, but they're not comfortable squatting. So their bench press might need some advancement a bit sooner than everything else. So I wouldn't say they're mostly novice, but they're not the full body. And so like you have to make sure you're thinking about a novice person versus a novice type of program.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay, so I'm going to set you up. This is where I'm hoping that we're doing podcast long enough that I'm going to set you up with a question that I haven't pre-asked you and hope you come up with the answer that I'm looking for, right? But don't just answer it honestly. Okay.
Knowledge and chemistry is on the line.
That's right. Here we go. So a lot of your clients, as you've said, they've been with you for a long time. Therefore, they have come out of or grown out of novice programming, and they're more into some version of a wave, right? So like a 5s week 1 and 3s week 2 and singles 3rd week and then a deload week and then sort of repeating that. So that now they're on kind of a month-long program, which is clearly not novice. So my question is this. What is the ribbon that binds those clients together that gets them to that point? Like, how did you know they're ready to get there? And they, and they're not just doing novice. And not a complicated answer, but like, what is the thing?
It's that I had to first change the workout from workout to workout. Like it couldn't just be squat, bench dead, squat, press dead.
Right.
So like there had to be separation between, there had to be more variation in what they're doing in the squat day 1 of the week and what they're doing in the squat day 2 of the week. That was the first step. And then I would go through a period of it would be the same, 4x5 on one day, 4x3 on another day, or 3x3 on the second day of squat. And I would go that week to week and I would let that just kind of wave up. And then I could not do that anymore. They would miss reps. They would die. They would miss workouts. Could not do that. So then I had to make it week by week changes and then month by month changes. So it's the amount of time that it takes to be able to add more, like you were saying earlier, lengthens.
So that's the technical piece. But what is the actual like 30,000 foot view is, it takes a lot of time and consistency to get there.
Yeah, these are my clients who have been with me for, hundreds of workouts. Right,
years. Probably some of the people that were like calling out last week that are like BL1K type clients, done 1,000 workouts, right? And so one of the things, the first big important point I think that we make here is that if you're not sure whether you're still a novice or not, you probably are. Now, again, I'm painting with a white, like maybe not in all the lifts, right? But in general, and it comes back to, we always want to default to the simplest. The simplest programming is almost always the most effective. Simple, hard, effective. That's what we do, right? And what you see is when you get to the point that you can't linear progress via increases in weight / intensity or volume or tonnage, like whatever that thing is that you're trying, when you can no longer linear get better at that, that's almost always 99% of the time because you have trained long enough and consistent enough. And it's a combination of both, right? That you can no longer just keep it like, because we all know if we think about this and we take it to the end, if we could just linear progress forever, we just keep adding weight to the bar until we all squat 1,000. Or we'd be like, oh, hey, like let's get to an 800-pound squat.
Yeah, there wouldn't be enough weights in the world for us.
Yeah, let's do 8, and then let's do 800 pounds for 1, and then the next week let's do 800 pounds for 2, and then the next week let's do 800 pounds for 3. Like that doesn't work, right? But how much work does it take to get to an 800-pound squat?
A lot of work.
Like probably decades, or a lot of drugs, or both, right? And so so the idea that number one, understanding that if you can linear progress via one of those basic variables, I would argue that you should always do that first. That's if I just add a little bit of weight or a little bit of volume, which what you're doing is if you're just adding a little bit of stress every single workout and you can continue to do that, that's what you should do. That's what you want to do. That's the best possible option.
And like even practically, you could choose to not do that and make things really complex. And then you get a freaking life curveball thrown at you and you can't go to the gym because you got sick or something happened. And you might not ever have such an ideal set of circumstances again to be able to do it.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. If you can do it, just do it.
Yeah. So, and there's a couple things I was thinking about this too, thinking about the podcast today was, does more complicated programming work? And the answer is yes, all the time it does. But why would you do more complicated if you could just add a little bit of weight each time? And the reality is some people actually they just get so bored. They're like, I just need it to be mixed up. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, again, there is that relational side of coach-client aspect that you don't want your client to get so bored that they're like, good grief, I'm going and just add another 2.5 pounds again to the butt. Like, I get it. I've been there too,
Totally.
right? But we know if we add a little bit of weight every single workout, or we add a little bit of volume every single workout, i.e. we add a little bit of stress every single workout, and we continue to make progress for long periods of time, like, we can so clearly show that the person is getting stronger or is advancing towards the goal. As soon as you start waiving things, the actual keeping of metrics becomes a little more difficult. Now, for you, it's still the way you do it. You can look at, okay, a month ago when they did their sets of 5, their top 5, or their heavy set of 5, their top sets of 5, if they were able to do a little more for sets of 5 4 weeks later, then they showed improvement. And if they're able to do that several months in a row, then that, then you know that, like, well, it wasn't just a good day or a bad day. That's also why there's times when you're waiving things. If you have an off day, if you have a night that you don't sleep well, if you got sick, or if you whatever, like, it kind of almost throws you in this, like, am I going backwards? Is the program working? And you don't really know again until you try it again a month later and try the 5s again. Whereas if you're doing linear and you have the day where you're like, boy, I just didn't eat enough yesterday, or I didn't sleep enough, and you have a bad workout, you'll come in a couple days later and find out if, like, okay, if you string 2 or 3 of those together, like, okay, now we have a problem. But most of the time, you just have a bad workout and you're able to keep making progress.
Yeah, that is tough. Like, because there are, I run into it on occasion with some of my clients where it's true, they missed it. And I'm like, okay, did they miss it because I need to change the program?
That's right.
Or did they miss it because something was off?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not
and you're right.
just
Sometimes
the
it
client.
takes a couple cycles to find out.
That's
because
exactly right.
you want to try it again, because that would be the simplest thing to do, is try it again.
That's right. It's not just the client that sometimes it throws into the tizzy. Sometimes it's the longtime professional veteran coach that you're like, am I screwing this programming up? And so, which is why
every time I do programming, am I screwing this programming up?
Well, but that's why, again, I'm gonna preach. I'm gonna shout from the rooftops the value of minimum effective dose program, because if we do the minimum effective dose and we move and we just increase the dose a little bit and then it doesn't work, it very quickly we find out why it didn't work, and then we can just change the variable to.
It's wonderful.
You could just be like, oh, rather than the more complicated the program is, it still may work as well. Hell, it may work better. But if it doesn't work, you're like, I don't really know why it didn't work. So it's really hard to come up with that, right? So, okay, so the first part is this. If you can train and make linear progression, you should. If you're a coach and you're coaching clients and they can advance on linear progression, and I'm not a big fan, while I'm a huge fan of fractional plates and micro gains, I am not a huge fan of increasing the weight by 1/4 of a pound or 1/2 a pound. I think that is like, just even the variance of like the 45-pound plates that I'm throwing on the bars, like, it's just not worth it. It's not
I still have clients make little jumps on some lifts. Like,
on press.
On press. Like, sometimes actually on bench. I had this super strong lifter. He's like benching 3 to 4 plates. And we would have him do this like weekly LP where he would go up like 1/2 kilo every workout.
That's crazy.
And he just kept hitting PRs.
That's fine.
So we just kept doing it.
I think that's fine. I actually think that more often than not, it's actually the other way around. And that's where you start to grind on people mentally. Mentally, most people don't want to do that. They're like, just 1 kilo jump or a 1 pound jump. Or, by the way, you talk about screwing up programming. I have a client, Matt. I'll just say his first name is Matt. I screwed up his program. The other day he had
oh no,
he was having some a little bicep tendonitis, which is very probably the most common thing you have, right? It was one of those things where he had been a decently strong squatter in the past, had taken a lot of time off, and is one of my new clients. I haven't coached him very long. Bigger guy, so kind of tough to get under the bar. So he's doing a lot of those stretches to get under the bar, and that's a lot of times you kind of overstretch it and kind of go too hard to try to get in that low bar position. The elbow was like, ouch. So he was ready to move to a 4-day split anyway. And so I had his first upper body. So the upper body movements, what was going on, it was the problem of the bicep tendonitis was really coming from the squat. But then it was being aggravated on the bench press, and the press, especially the bench press, was really bothering him. But bench press, I could tell, not the root of the problem. It was just the symptom. And so he's a brand new client to me. And so I was like, I'm going to have this guy go in and do like 3 sets of 15 at 135 pounds. But for some reason, I was just thinking that he was like in England. And so I programmed it at 60 kilos. And then here's this big guy that's like, I mean, he's a big boy, right? He's like 285 pounds or something.
And
he's got the barbell and he's got like a little 5 and a 2.5. And I was like, what the hell are you doing?
He
like,
must have been so annoyed by you.
And I was like, oh no. I was like, I programmed it in kilos. But then I just had a brain fart. And so I was like, I'm really sorry, man. I screwed that up. So then the next workout we were actually, so we're kind of linear progressing with his bicep tendonitis where he's bench pressing 135 for 3 sets, 15, and then 145, 155. And it's pumping a bunch of blood in and it's feeling a lot better. But I was just like, gosh, what a bonehead move by me. Here I've coached for 25 years and I'm still like,
yeah.
And I'm like, what in the world? This guy took a video and he's got he's showing me his first warm up. And why would he even warm up with like a barbell and a 5 and a 2.5, like this 285-pound guy? I was like,
and he was probably thinking the same thing.
Oh yeah. He's like, man, this is odd. What an odd choice of weight that Reynolds picked. Like, yep. I was like, sorry, man, that was in key. I don't know why I was thinking I was in key. So yeah, so we still screw that stuff up. So anyway, okay, so if you can linear progress, you should. Number 1, as a client or as a coach who's coaching for people. Number 2 is that when you can't make progress like that anymore, great. You're not a novice anymore. You can't do linear progression. You can't truly do novice programming, but you do want to still do programming that's the simplest method possible, which I would argue is the minimum effective dose change, which probably means that you have to start to wave instead of like Monday to Monday, you have to start waving it, every other week or every, like you're going to have to basically double the amount of time it takes to make the progress and increase weight on the bar, or increase volume on the bar, or tonnage on the bar, whatever that is. But then the third thing is this. What do you do with these clients that you're talking about who are clearly out of novice programming? And then they get the curveball and life hits, COVID hits, the kid gets sick. We talk about this, not I had a stomach bug for a day. Because you have a stomach bug for a day or 2 days or 3 days, nothing changes about the programming other than maybe a minor deload for 1 or 2 workouts. But like life throws them a 2-week curveball. Then what do you do with your clients?
They'll do a little short, boring LP.
That's exactly what they do.
Yep.
Because they're a novice again for a little bit.
Yeah, for a little bit. And the most important thing I think with those folks is like, don't run it hard. Like, don't force it. Don't force the LP at the end. Be like, oh, if we just do one more workout,
that's right.
I know you're going to hit that 5 RM that you've been chasing for 5 years.
That's exactly right.
Like, no, it's not worth it.
So I think that's important. What are the differences between when you have somebody, actually, I think I mentioned this last week, Father Floater had to take like a 10-day sort of mental and physical break because his card broken down and he was walking over a mile in the icy cold in Minnesota. And he never misses workouts. He's like, man, I just need like a week and a half off. Okay. So he took a week and a half off, did no training whatsoever. Right. So what's he do when he comes back? LP. Right. Now I still put him on the 4-day split and we actually even still kept the supplemental lifts in, but we're just like adding weight every single time. What's the difference between how I'm going to approach him as opposed to how I'm going to approach one of my brand new clients when they first come? Well, yeah, what do you think?
You know what to start him. You have a much better idea of what weight to start him at.
That's exactly right.
And he does too. Yeah.
That's
so
exactly
he'll
right.
be like, I think that was about right. You don't like, they're not going to come out of the gate too hard.
That's right.
There's going to be some runway, but really when you start a brand new novice, you have lots of runway. And I think when someone comes back, you don't have as much, which is okay.
Why do you have so much runway with a new lifter?
Because their ability to improve, like their neuromuscular adaptation there's so much to be had. And there's just not as much when they get more advanced.
And then how much change are you making from workout to workout?
Sometimes you can make, gosh, I think it would depend on the absolute strength of the lifter.
Well, let's say let's say really for that true novice, and I'm not talking about in that first like 2 weeks where maybe you're adding 10 pounds per lift, but like the traditional thing is you're actually making small jumps with them for a long time, which is why you have a lot of runway, right? I think we talked about this last week. You get to that point where you're adding 5 pounds per workout or 2.5 pounds per workout, or even 1.25 pounds per lift, if it's something like a press. And so it continues to buy runway is what you're doing. You're just buying more runway. You could jump 10 or 15 pounds, say 2 months into the program, and they could probably do it. We said this last week. But then what are you going to do after that? Now, what am I doing with Floater? What do you think I'm doing with him?
You can make some bigger jumps.
I'm making huge jumps. Guys jumping like
down the end
30
runway
pounds per workout.
Right.
Per exercise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he'll do just fine, because what's the goal? The goal for a true first absolute beginner, like ranked novice, is to just very slowly let their body adapt to getting strong, to learn how to get strong for the very first time. For a client like ours who have been strong before, the goal is to get them back to where they were as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And that's different.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking about other kind of situational novices, which would be coming back from an injury.
Yeah.
And I've been learning that when you're coming back from an injury, like you have to, in order to not aggravate that area again, you're almost still working around it. And you have to like learn how to brace differently. You have to learn how to hit different positions differently. So it kind of feels like there are certain parts of your body that are novice again. Like you have become at some point, and I'm totally speaking about myself, I'll just be honest. Like I've learned how to
with your
squat.
back, or
with my back. Yeah. I've learned how to squat and I've learned how to deadlift, and I've spent a decade doing that in certain ways. And now I have to do it differently.
Right.
And holy balls, man, like the way I have to move now and brace, it feels like RPE 11 at
So it's
85
just completely
pounds.
different than what you've ever done
It's
before.
completely
Same lift.
different. It's a completely new relationship
right.
with this squat.
Yep.
And I feel now for novices again, because I'm just like, man, I feel what it's like to be totally unsure of if I'm putting things in the right place again and how I have to focus. And so when you're coming back from an injury, I think when you're coaching someone coming back from an injury, you have to really respect that and appreciate that there are going to be some parts of their movement, some parts of their muscular strength that are actually on the novice end. And while things might look really good for a while, you might push too hard too fast, and you have to like build that movement pattern like very strictly.
Yep. Yeah, I was just thinking, I've never thought about this, but when someone comes back, someone who's been through, like walked through the fire of getting through novice and becoming an intermediate or even advanced lifter, and then there is a reason they have to take time off and they come back. If they come back in the situation we talked about first, where they're completely healthy, they're not injured, right? They just had to take time off. They went on vacation or somebody got sick, but there's not an injury they're working on. They're healthy in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
You can make big jumps. You can make fast progress, back to where they were quickly. Their body adapts fast. As everybody's heard about muscle memory, right? Which obviously your muscle doesn't actually have a brain, but it really does get back. Like it because it's adapted to that before, it adapts faster and quicker when you come back. However, when someone is coming back from an injury, I actually think you have to go significantly more slow than you did when they were the very first novice for the very first time. Like it's not even as simple as just add 5 pounds or 10 pounds to the bar every single time. You often can't do that. You often shouldn't do that. And if you're not careful as a coach, you'll go, well, look, man, I've got this guy who's coming back. I'm thinking one of my clients come back from like a knee injury, had this like meniscus thing that was going on and continued to just bother him. And this guy's like squatted over 500 pounds. And it's just taken so long, like a couple years to recover, to like rehab this thing. And now it's finally rehabbing, and we are just going so slow and so careful. And so, squatting like 275 for 3 sets of 5, we squatted over 500 pounds. A novice coach who hasn't done this before, like, let's just go from 275 to 300 and then, 325 or 315 and then 3. And the reality is like, got to actually go even slower. We're going to go 275 and we're going to make sure that everything felt really good. We're going to have some of those like subjective feedback metrics where it's like, how did it feel? Not like how hard was it, but like, how did the knee feel? How did the knee feel before? Did it feel stable during? Did it hurt after?
Yeah.
Some of those things. And then you make that adjustment. You're like, okay, maybe we can go up 5 pounds. Maybe we keep the weight the same and we try to get just some better reps out of it the next week. Like those sort of things happen. So I think there are times.
Yeah, you've really added another variable.
Absolutely.
You've added like pain, discomfort, whatever word or feeling you want to use there. But that is something that will guide the other variables.
That's exactly right. Yep. The pain.
And like resiliency is a big one
That's right.
too.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's tough with someone who's been an advanced lifter because their pain tolerance is naturally higher. Like I know my pain tolerance is higher now than it was before I ever lifted. You learn how to get uncomfortable with weight on your back or in your hands. And so if you ask a brand new novice who, especially somebody who's really never done anything really difficult from a physical perspective, you're like, well, how bad does it hurt on the pain scale of 1 to 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're natural.
9.
Oh, it's a 7 or 8. Like 7 or 8? 7 or 8 is like somebody poured gasoline on me and set me on fire. And they're like, oh, and you're like, they're just, but then if you have somebody that's like gotten really strong, they've squatted over 500 pounds, and you're like, how bad does it hurt on a scale of 1 to 10? They're like, 2.5.
3.
3.
Yeah. Because we don't want to stop.
That's right. And
we don't want to stop. Like, because we know if we say it's a 9, like it really is sometimes.
Right.
We're afraid of the cost.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like I can't, like it's a compound fracture. I can see my femur sticking out of my leg. Like it's I don't know. It's an 8. I mean, I think if I got a good cast, I could still squat on it next week. You'll get crazy answers like that. Like I don't think so. So yeah. Okay. So the takeaways here are this.
Yeah.
Everybody's a novice except you, and you're a novice too. That's number 1.
I'm like looking. Who?
No, like you, the listener. You're listen to me. I know you're like, is he talking about me? Yes.
So
you're also probably still a novice, right? Now, if you're actually not a novice, especially if you got a really good professional coach who can tell you so in the program, then you're still going to make really simple adjustments, minimum effective dose changes to continue to make progress so that you know if it's working or not sooner rather than later. That's key. If you come back from a layoff and the layoff was, family drama oriented, death oriented, just a typical sickness. You got the flu, you got COVID, something like that, which is serious, but you're not coming back injured, right? Or you just had a layoff, or you just went on vacation and drank too many margaritas or whatever. Then you go back to linear progression and you make fast jumps, big jumps quickly to get back to where you were as quick as possible. As long as everything's healthy and feels good, that's the strategy. But if you're coming back from a real injury, like this thing that you just haven't been able to get over, like this thing that's hurt for, like the back has hurt forever, the knee has hurt forever, you got the tendonitis that you can't get over, you should go much slower than you did. So if homeostasis, or sort of the standard increase, is what you would do for a typical healthy first-time novice, and you've been an advanced lifter and you're coming back and you're healthy, you can go faster than that. But if you're coming back not healthy and you're injured, you got to go slower than that. And that's the takeaway, the big takeaway, I think, for both the lifter and for the coach. The coaches out there that are listening to, and you've got lifters who are coming back, and you're like, how fast can I go? Well, it entirely depends on what the situation is with the lifter. If they're healthy and feel great, you can go pretty fast. If something hurts real bad, you better slow it way down. Because again, the goal here is longevity and consistency. Yeah. And what you'll find with most people, Scott and I used to say this all the time, is that most people have enough things on their calendar throughout the year, enough vacations, enough going to see the grandkids, go on cruise, somebody gets sick. Those things happen that they just continue to basically be in linear progression. They might just get out of linear progression. I have lots of clients like this. I'm sure you do too. They just get out of linear progression and they get to slightly more advanced programming, and then the next thing hits. And it's not always like the curveball.
I don't have clients like that.
Oh God, I have so many clients like that. And it's not like sickness. It's like, I look at on our app, I really love the feature on our app now that the calendar where they can go in and I can look down through their calendar the next several months. Like, oh, they're going on vacation in 3 weeks.
Oh yeah. They can block off dates when they can't train. Yeah.
Dude, I got a guy, if you're listening, I'm sorry, I will not call you. I'm like, this guy travels way more than I do. Only it's not like business trips. It's like Mexico. It's like Austin Music Fest for 5 days. It's like, Burning Man I'm like, this guy goes on vacation every third week. And I'm trying to figure out, like, how am I gonna?
That's gonna be an LP for a long time.
Yeah, like how am I gonna? Well, so but again, having that understanding what that is, man, I got a lot of people that have something that causes them to not train for a week to 2 weeks. I'd say on average every quarter, 4 times a year, 5 times a year. They have 1 or 2 weeks that they miss. It's some vacation, like, oh, I'm going to Vermont in the middle of nowhere, and there is no gym, period. Not, hey, I'm going to a city, and I'll find a gym to train at twice instead of 4 times. Like, I can make that work, and we can keep making progress. But, like, we're staying with grandma in the mountains. I've got a guy that's like, he was telling me he's going on a trip, but he didn't tell me where or what. And I was like, well, is there going to be a hotel gym there? Because we can do something if there's a hotel gym. If you're going to be too busy to go find a gym, it's fine. But if you're staying at grandma's house in the middle of the woods, it's like, man, that's a little harder. And so, figuring out how to adjust, I think is key. So figuring out how hard to push as a coach and as a client, when to push harder, when to push less is key. But if you wonder, should I be doing LP? The answer is probably yes. You should probably figure out, like, there's probably a way to add a little bit of weight or a little bit of stress each time.
Definitely.
There you go.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you like what you heard, or if you mostly like what you heard, give us a 5-star review.
If it was basically a 4-star podcast, we'd still really appreciate a 5-star review. Which, let's be honest,
what's going to take for that?
Most of the time it is a 4-star podcast, but go ahead and give us the 5 stars. Just be nice. Be generous.
And if there's someone who is an LP or who is a novice and you think would benefit from this, send them this episode.
Everyone that's listening, every single person in fact, is a novice and can benefit from this, because we've already established that you're all novices, including me and you.
So are you.
We're all novices. Mm-hmm. so go tell literally anyone that you know so they can benefit from this.
I'm sure they'll connect with it immediately.
No, sorry. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.